Hey guys, tonight we're taking a gentle, low-calorie plunge into the quietly bonkers world of 1960s diet culture. A time when women were told happiness came in a can of grapefruit juice, and the only thing more fashionable than a bouffant was a public nervous breakdown over your dress size. So, before you get comfortable, consider liking and subscribing, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment about where you're listening from, and if you've ever made dinner out of cottage cheese and desperation. Now, dim the lights, switch on that fan, for ambiance, not just to cool down your existential dread, and slide into something less constricting, ideally not a 1967 girdle. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered, what was it really like to wake up in a world obsessed with celery and shame? Did anyone actually enjoy Tab Cola, or did they just pretend for their Weight Watchers leader? How did women cope with the pressure of staying slim while cooking 3 full meals a day for everyone else? Was the bathroom scale a friendly advisor, or a petty tyrant with trust issues? And is there a support group for people traumatized by the phrase Melba toast? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1963. There's polyester in your closet, a grapefruit in your hand, and the TV is whispering that you'll never be thin enough. But at least your Jell-O salad is low-fat. Good luck. The alarm clock blares beside your twin bed. Before you even open your eyes, you remember, it's Monday. That means it's weigh-in day. You tiptoe to the bathroom like a criminal sneaking into a crime scene, praying the scale is feeling merciful. The 1960s bedroom is a place where the morning sun shines on pastel walls, ruffled curtains, and a deep-seated fear of carbohydrates. You try to slip out of bed quietly, so as not to wake your husband or your guilt. Every floorboard creaks in protest, as if the house itself knows you're about to commit the cardinal sin of hoping your body hasn't betrayed you since last week. There's a full-length mirror lurking by the closet, catching you in your cotton nightgown, which is equal parts innocent sleepwear and polyester lie. You glance at your reflection for a millisecond, then avert your eyes. No need to start the day with too much honesty. In the hall, you pass the family photo wall. There you are, last summer at the lake, sucking in your stomach while holding a casserole dish. The memory tastes faintly of potato chips and regret. It's a reminder that you, too, have been waging war against your waistline since before Kennedy took office. Sometimes it feels like the scale is a government agent, collecting information you'd rather keep secret. You close the bathroom door with the stealth of a Cold War spy. The scale sits there, gleaming, judgmental, and far too accurate. Not digital, of course. This is a sturdy hunk of metal and enameled glass that could double as a murder weapon on Columbo. You step on and off quickly, like the faster you do it, the less real it will be. But the needle has no mercy. It wobbles, hesitates, and then settles on a number that feels oddly personal. If only you could bribe it with a piece of licorice or a promise to skip lunch. For a moment, you negotiate with the universe. Was it really necessary to eat that half piece of pie at your neighbor's bridge night? Is it possible your hair grew heavier overnight? Maybe if you breathe out hard enough, you'll float a little. Spoiler, you won't. Outside the bathroom, the world continues as if nothing has happened. Birds chirp, your children start fighting over cereal, and your husband calls for coffee. You consider yelling back, "I've just had my self-esteem demolished by a household appliance. Give me a minute." But you don't. You smooth down your nightgown, summon a cheerful voice, and pretend everything is fine. Breakfast looms ahead. You mentally calculate your options: grapefruit, dry toast, and coffee. The 1960s diet doctrine says you can have all three, as long as you eat them without joy. You can practically hear a voiceover in your head. A trim figure is a happy figure. If only it were true. The kitchen is filled with sunlight, and judgment. Every clink of a spoon echoes. Are you sure you want that? The box of cornflakes on the counter taunts you with the promise of bland virtue. You stare at the scale's number all morning, seeing it imprinted on every reflective surface, the toaster, the chrome on the fridge, even the shiny linoleum. It's like being haunted by a ghost who only appears to shame you for eating a second hard-boiled egg. And yet, somehow, you survive. You survive the scale, the suspicious looks, the quiet self-doubt, and the endless Monday mornings of your life. Because in the 1960s, the scale is less a health device and more a cultural oracle. A little machine that tells you if you're worthy of happiness, compliments, or the occasional slice of bread. You step off, you straighten your shoulders, and you start another day. Still standing, still hungry, and, frankly, still you. Breakfast is less a meal and more a punishment ritual. Half a grapefruit stares up at you like a jaundiced eye. If you're lucky, there's a single slice of dry toast, no butter, because happiness has calories. The kitchen smells like coffee and quiet desperation. You sit at the table, the formica cool beneath your forearms, listening to the percolator sputter. This is the hour when every 1960s woman silently reviews her list of regrets. Late night snacking, birthday cake at the office. That time you finished the kids' macaroni and cheese instead of scraping it straight into the trash like a more disciplined mother. You nudge the pink grapefruit with your spoon and try to imagine you're in a glamorous Hollywood film. But there are only so many ways to make a sour, puckered fruit feel like Marilyn Monroe. The children thunder in, demanding pancakes, syrup, and all the things you've carefully banned yourself from eating. You dole out their plates like a cheerful cafeteria worker, plastering on a smile. You pour a river of syrup and hand over the bacon, all while sipping black coffee and pretending you're not experiencing hunger on a spiritual level. Every whiff of maple feels like an accusation. If you really cared, you'd make the whole family diet with you. You know better. There's only so much misery one breakfast table can contain. Your husband reads the newspaper, folding it like an origami fortress between himself and everyone else. Occasionally he grunts in your direction, a signal that he'd like more coffee, please, and possibly a second helping of the bacon you're not allowed to touch. You study him with the cold gaze of a scientist observing an apex predator at rest. He doesn't count calories. He counts slices. Meanwhile, you tackle the grapefruit. You've heard rumors that this fruit burns fat, but it mostly burns the inside of your mouth. You saw this meal in a magazine once, a svelte, beaming housewife in full makeup, attacking her grapefruit with purpose. In real life, the fruit spits bitter juice in your eye, and the sectioning is never clean. The toast, too, is its own brand of disappointment. No golden edges, no melting pat of butter, just a brittle, dusty rectangle that could patch a hole in the living room wall. You chew slowly, pretending not to notice your youngest licking syrup from her fingers. You're aware, with the clarity of someone standing outside themselves, that you are not satisfied. In fact, you are nowhere near satisfied. If satisfaction were a country, you're living several continents away. You're stranded in Dietland, a bleak and crumbless place. The radio clicks on, blaring a cheery ad for instant pudding that the whole family will love. You consider licking the air in hopes of absorbing stray calories. Instead, you scrape the last grapefruit segment, determined to extract every drop of theoretical vitamin C. You look at your watch, 2 hours to lunch. You sip your coffee and imagine a future where people just eat breakfast. You do the math in your head. How many calories in grapefruit? In dry toast? Is coffee allowed to be counted? What if you just licked the jam spoon? Does that count? You remember your Weight Watchers meeting last Thursday, where someone confessed to eating an entire sleeve of crackers during a commercial break, and everyone gasped like it was a murder confession. The morning wears on. The kids finish and dash out the door, sticky and satisfied. You clear the table, stacking empty plates, and consider, for a fleeting second, making a second piece of toast. You do not. You gather the crumbs like a miser and throw them away. Breakfast ends not with fullness, but with resolve. The kitchen hums with leftover smells and the low-grade ache of denial. You rinse your grapefruit bowl, wash your toast plate, and tell yourself you feel lighter already. Maybe tomorrow you'll allow yourself a little butter, or maybe tomorrow will be another round of citrus and self-control. Either way, you'll be here, at the table, in the kitchen, fighting the same old battle between hunger and hope. You glance in the mirror and begin the daily scan. Do these new capri pants make you look like Jackie Kennedy, or like a slightly glamorous sausage? You suck in your stomach and tell yourself you'll start that new diet. Again. It's a ritual older than coffee. Before you even brush your teeth, you assess the situation. The mirror is a cold, impartial judge. It hangs there, framed in gold paint and 1,000 whispered insecurities. You shift left, then right, contorting yourself like a gymnast hoping to stick the landing. The mirror offers no applause, only brutal honesty under fluorescent lights. Your torso, your thighs, your waist. Each gets its turn under the microscope. You suck in your gut, rearrange your capri pants, and experiment with the ancient magic of good posture. Shoulders back, chin up, core engaged. For a fleeting second, you consider that maybe, just maybe, you've finally mastered this body thing. Then you turn sideways. Nope. You're either chiseled like a Greek statue or dangerously close to looking like the before photo in a detergent ad. There is no in-between. In the 1960s, mirrors don't just reflect, they interrogate. There's no Instagram filter here, just a square of silver-backed glass, revealing every lump, every bump, every spot where last night's pot roast lingers. Your bathroom shelf is an army of creams, powders, and hope in a jar. You dab a little concealer under your eyes, like spackling over the cracks in your self-confidence. Still, the real focus is below the neck. You twist and tug at your waistband. The capri zipped up this morning, but at what cost? A deep red indentation forms where fabric meets flesh. Like a reminder from the fashion gods that comfort is for people with no ambition. Maybe if you just lose those last 5 pounds, everything in your wardrobe will finally make sense. Maybe then you'll step into the light and hear a chorus of angels, or at least the neighbor's dog not barking at you. You consider the ultimate test, the sit-down check. You perch gingerly on the edge of the bed, watching the mirror for signs of betrayal. The fabric pulls, the stomach pushes. Gravity does its worst. You inhale and pray. This, you think, is the true Olympic sport for women. Sitting down in pants and pretending everything is under control. The closet looms behind you, filled with dresses in various goal sizes. Some are relics from the Eisenhower era, others aspirational, all of them perfectly arranged, like an archive of broken promises. You finger the sleeve of a mint green shift dress. Maybe by summer, you tell yourself. Maybe by summer you'll be someone who drinks water with lemon and wakes up wanting to exercise. Maybe you'll be someone who doesn't avoid mirrors entirely. Down the hall, you hear the house coming alive, kids stomping, the radio blaring, your husband whistling a tune that should be illegal before 8 a.m. You take a final look at your reflection and strike a pose. One hand on your hip, the other smoothing down the front of your blouse. If you can't look like Jackie, maybe you can at least channel her confidence. The truth is, the mirror doesn't lie, but it sure does exaggerate. Some mornings you see every imagined flaw blown up in Technicolor. Other mornings, if you squint just right, you see someone strong, someone funny, someone who's still showing up. You remind yourself that Jackie Kennedy probably had days where her capri pants betrayed her too. With one last deep breath, you step away from the glass, leaving the mirror to its silent judgments. You make a promise. Tomorrow, you'll try to see yourself with a little more kindness, a little less suspicion. But for now, there's breakfast to endure, children to wrangle, and a world to face, capri pants and all. Your family sits down to eat bacon and eggs, but you're nursing a cup of black coffee. Your husband eyes your plate, then his. Your children watch, curious and a little confused, as you weigh out exactly 1.5 ounces of sadness. This is how every weekday starts, a tableau of American prosperity, eggs gleaming in butter, bacon curling, the soft haze of toast and orange juice, except at your place at the table, there's a scale, not a metaphorical scale, but an actual kitchen scale, the kind you might use to weigh flour or guilt. You carefully plop a sliver of ham on the tray, watch the needle swing, then surgically remove a crumb to hit your self-imposed limit. It's not breakfast, it's performance art. Your husband, master of the casual second helping, barely notices as he shovels eggs onto his plate. But every so often, he glances at you. It's never clear if he's admiring your willpower or quietly wondering if you're about to pass out mid-sentence. The kids, meanwhile, try to trade sausage links under the table like black market dealers. Someone drops a fork. You consider picking it up just to burn a few extra calories. Conversation at the table is a careful dance. Your husband asks, "Aren't you eating?" as if the evidence isn't directly in front of him. You smile and explain that you're just not that hungry, which is a lie on par with "this isn't really butter and I don't mind doing the dishes." Your son looks concerned. Your daughter studies you, learning, maybe too quickly, that hunger is sometimes a badge of honor, or at least an obligation. You sip your coffee, hoping the caffeine will fill the emotional void left by bacon. The aroma wafts up, mixing with the smells of toast and buttery eggs, forming a kind of breakfast cologne that lingers in your hair for the rest of the day. You try not to notice the golden yolk, the crispy edges, the way your husband mops up his plate with a triangle of toast, as if demonstrating a forgotten Olympic event. Every bite he takes feels like a small betrayal. Why doesn't he have to worry about any of this? The kitchen is a stage, and you are the lead actor in a play called Disappearing Woman. Every meal, you disappear a little more. You keep one eye on the clock, the other on the scale, as if a surprise calorie will leap out and ruin everything. Your daughter asks for more juice. You pour it, careful not to spill. Juice stains are hard to get out. And besides, that's more sugar than you've allowed yourself in a month. Your husband cracks jokes about diets, referencing someone at work who lost 30 pounds by eating only cabbage. You nod politely, knowing that if you hear one more person say nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, you might throw the grapefruit bowl through the window. You laugh anyway, because the real answer, that everything tastes better than skinny, doesn't get said out loud in 1963. When the meal is over, you clear the plates, watching the kids scatter to the TV and your husband retreat behind the sports page. You're left with the empty table, the half-cold coffee, and a scale that reads success in tiny, resentful increments. You wipe crumbs off the table, sweep up the evidence, and tell yourself it's worth it, that all this denial will add up to something that finally feels like victory. And yet, in the soft, quiet aftermath, you wonder, what would breakfast taste like if you didn't weigh it, fear it, measure it, or explain it? What would it be like to just sit and eat? You pour yourself a little more coffee, black, always black, and get ready for the day. The family moves on, but the scale waits for you again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. There's a new magazine on the table, promising that you can lose 5 pounds in 3 days by eating only cabbage soup. You consider your options: starvation, cabbage, or moving to a country where bread isn't a crime. You eye the magazine warily, as if it might leap off the table and force-feed you shredded lettuce. The cover is a riot of pastel optimism, smiling housewives, before and after silhouettes, and splashy headlines like "Erase Inches Fast" or "Hollywood Starlet's Secret Diet, Shedding Pounds While You Sleep." If weight loss was truly this easy, you'd be floating away on a cloud of celery by now. You flip through the glossy pages, half hopeful, half exhausted. There's a special report on the grapefruit diet. Eat nothing but grapefruit for 7 days, doctors hate her. And a glowing testimonial from a woman named Barb, who claims she lost 18 pounds and all her joy on the Wiener water cleanse. The cabbage soup plan gets a full 4 pages, with helpful tips for making it fun. Spoiler, it isn't. And a smiling, slightly gaunt woman in an apron holding a bowl the size of a bird bath. Somewhere between the ice cream diet and lose inches with this amazing chewing trick, you realize these magazines are less about science and more about desperate hope. There's a part of you that wants to believe that maybe, if you just followed the directions exactly, you'd become that radiant woman on page 22 with a 24-inch waist and the energy of a border collie. But then you remember last year's miracle milk diet, result, mild lactose intolerance, no miracles. And the egg and cottage cheese plan, side effect, existential dread, and relentless flatulence. Still, it's hard not to be tempted. The photos promise transformation. You can be a new you by Sunday. Who wouldn't want to wake up thinner, happier, and apparently glowing with a sort of vague, ethereal light? The copywriters make it sound so simple. Just eat this, avoid that, and resist the urge to gnaw your own arm off after day 2. You begin to weigh your choices. On one hand, cabbage is cheap and abundant. On the other, you're not entirely sure your family or your digestive system will survive the ordeal. The kids stumble into the kitchen and spot the magazine. Your daughter reads aloud, "Lose 10 pounds in 5 days with soup." She looks at you, wide-eyed, as if you might actually attempt it. Your husband glances over his coffee and mutters, "Didn't you try something like that last February?" You bristle slightly. Sure, you tried it, and you're still trying it, in a way. Aren't we all? The mail arrives, and with it, another pamphlet. Join the Slim Down revolution. There are coupons for meal replacements, a free measuring tape, and an exclusive invitation to a shape-up supper at the local rec center. You imagine a room full of women gnawing on celery and pretending it's cheesecake. The promise of community is almost as strong as the promise of weight loss, but you know the drill. More recipes for low-calorie despair, more discussions about cheat days that sound like felony crimes. You tuck the magazine into the pile with the others, a stack of glossy guilt and fleeting optimism. In the 1960s, diet fads aren't just a trend, they're an industry. Every woman you know is on something. The Hollywood diet, the drinking man's diet, the mysterious Scandinavian banana regimen. You swap secrets in beauty salons, compare failures at PTA meetings, and cling to the idea that the next issue might finally have the answer. You sigh, pour yourself another coffee, black, always black, and glance at the bread box with longing. Maybe you'll try the cabbage soup, or maybe you'll try not trying for a day. But as sure as the mailman arrives, there'll be another miracle diet in your mailbox next week, promising hope, transformation, and a slightly smaller slice of pie. You wriggle into your girdle, a contraption designed by someone who clearly hated women. It squeezes, shapes, and occasionally cuts off your circulation, but it's the 1960s, and comfort is a luxury reserved for men and children. You stare at the offending garment in the weak morning light, a pale pink thing with more hooks, boning, and engineering than the Golden Gate Bridge. Sliding it up your thighs feels like participating in a medical experiment. There's the odd snap, a whiff of cold rubber, and the soft sound of dreams dying. By the time you've finally yanked it into place, You're sweating like you just finished an Olympic sprint. You do a quick check for structural integrity. The seams are holding, for now, but you know this false sense of security is just another trick in the relentless war between body and elastic. You turn to the mirror and give yourself a gentle pat down. The girdle has performed its magic, redistributing everything to somewhere, just not where you'd have chosen. Your stomach is in retreat, your hips reined in, your thighs flatly unamused. It's like living inside a slightly hostile sausage casing. Beauty is pain, they say, but this is less pain and more low-level asphyxiation. You try to sit, and the garment rebels, digging into your ribs as a warning. Stand up straight, or else. Now come the garters. No one warns you that putting on stockings is a contact sport. You wrestle with the straps, stretching them over pale nylon, praying you don't end up with a run. The whole process requires dexterity and the faith of a trapeze artist. You finally manage to clip each stocking into place, holding your breath as you do. One slip, and it's back to square one, possibly with a new ladder running up your calf for the world to see. You imagine Jackie Kennedy making it look effortless, never knowing the hidden struggles beneath every pillbox hat and pastel suit. Men, of course, are oblivious. They throw on trousers and call it a day. If they have to wear a tie, they complain as though they've been sent to a Siberian work camp. Meanwhile, you're fashioning your entire midsection into a tribute to tensile strength and Victorian repression. Comfort, in this era, is for the weak, or for children who run barefoot in the yard, mocking your grown-up suffering with every cartwheel. You head into the kitchen, moving with the stiff-legged grace of a malfunctioning robot. Sitting for breakfast requires strategy. Lower yourself slowly, avoid pinching, keep your back ramrod straight. You're one wrong move away from losing all feeling in your legs, but at least your silhouette is sleek and modern. You imagine the ads promising that the right foundation garment will give you confidence, allure, possibly even a raise at work. What they don't say is that it will also give you indigestion and a deep personal resentment of physics. By noon, the girdle has developed its own personality. Snarky, tight, and oddly vindictive. It creaks and groans, a constant reminder that your natural shape is the enemy. You wonder how long you can hold out before you start dreaming about burning it in the backyard. You fantasize about elasticless freedom, about the luxury of sweatpants, about the day when women's liberation means pants with actual waistbands. But for now, the march of elastic continues. You swap horror stories with other women at the beauty salon, whose girdle snapped, whose garter failed during church, whose slip slid at the most inopportune moment. It's a secret society bound by shared discomfort, and a collective promise never to let men know how much of your day is spent in battle with your underwear. When the day is over, you finally peel yourself out, gasping for breath and marveling at the weird indentations left behind. Freedom tastes like cool air on your skin. For a brief moment, you remember what comfort feels like. And then, you hang the girdle on its hook, knowing that tomorrow, the struggle will start all over again. At the office, the water cooler conversation revolves around calories. Carol from accounting is doing the grapefruit diet. You swap tips about which vending machine snacks can be eaten without spiraling into shame. Forget company memos or birthday cards. Nothing unites the 1960s workplace like collective hunger. Every morning starts with a chorus of greetings. Each woman scanning her co-workers for evidence of shrinking waists and secret cheating. Instead of the weather, everyone's comparing notes on the latest dietary trial. Is someone's skirt a little looser? Has Barb from sales stopped bringing her famous brownies? These are the questions that matter now. You make your way to your desk, past a cluster of women in pastel dresses, all clutching mugs of black coffee, as if caffeine is a substitute for self-esteem. The receptionist, whose job is part greeting, part calorie cop, is already rationing out donuts. Just one each, ladies. We're being good this week. The one lone bear claw sits on a napkin, a glazed symbol of moral failure. No one wants to be seen taking it. You settle for a stick of sugar-free gum and pretend to savor it. Carol appears at your elbow, her breath tinged with the citrusy edge of desperation. She confides that she's had nothing but grapefruit since Sunday and might soon start hallucinating tropical beaches. You nod, trying to top her story by revealing your own brush with the hard-boiled egg diet, which mostly involved low-grade misery and questionable eggs. Together, you giggle quietly. There's solidarity in shared suffering, especially when it comes with a side of light-headedness. Lunch is both a highlight and a minefield. There's the usual exodus to the break room, where Tupperware containers and brown bags open like little Pandora's boxes of dietary hopes and dashed dreams. You eyeball Helen's salad, no dressing, 2 olives, maximum sadness. And she sneaks a glance at your low-calorie yogurt, the one with the aftertaste of laboratory cleaning fluid. The men pile their plates high with roast beef sandwiches, potato chips, and actual happiness, then head back to their corner office, untouched by the tyranny of portion control. Meanwhile, a quiet trade network develops around the vending machine. You and the other women debate which snack is safe, the peanuts, the pretzels, or just a packet of black coffee with a side of envy. Someone swears by the secret trick of eating the crackers but skipping the peanut butter. It's like a diet version of insider trading, and the stakes are just as high. One misstep, and you're back at square one, explaining to Carol why you're starting fresh on Monday. The scale in the supply closet gets a workout. No one admits to using it, but everyone knows. You make up excuses to grab extra paper clips or a stapler, then sneak a quick weigh-in when the coast is clear. There's a whispered camaraderie. When the boss isn't looking, women swap quick notes on plateau-busting tips or tales of weekend transgressions involving secret cake. Mid-afternoon is the hardest. The office air grows heavy with the scent of coffee and suppressed longing. Someone rustles a candy wrapper, and heads turn like prairie dogs. A stray cookie on the break room counter becomes an object of group debate. To split it 4 ways, or pretend it never existed, the answer is always a mix of both. Divide it with surgical precision, then make a pact never to speak of it again. By 5 o'clock, everyone is exhausted, by work, by hunger, and by the mental gymnastics required to count calories instead of beans. As you gather your things, you realize that in the office, weight loss isn't just a private struggle. It's a team-building exercise, a collective penance, and sometimes, oddly enough, a way to belong. You head home, pockets stuffed with half-melted gum, and the knowledge that tomorrow, the water cooler will be waiting for you, along with Carol, the grapefruit, and another day of dietary diplomacy. Shopping for groceries in 1964 is a test of willpower. Every aisle is lined with processed foods, marshmallow fluff, and the hauntingly cheery face of the Jell-O lady. You try to remember what the nutritionist said about celery. The automatic doors whoosh open, and you step into fluorescent-lit temptation. Your list is short and virtuous. Lettuce, skim milk, diet bread, celery, but the store is a labyrinth designed by snack-loving devils. You grip your wire cart like a lifeline and recite your mantra. Stick to the edges, avoid the center aisles. But immediately, you are assaulted by a pyramid of potato chips, shining like golden promises. You swerve heroically, only to be ambushed by a display of chocolate syrup bottles grinning at you from the end cap. You head for the produce section, the one safe haven, except it isn't. Nestled among the apples and carrots, there are racks of new diet-friendly products, each more questionable than the last. There's grapefruit juice, the world's most optimistic liquid, slim crackers that taste like pressed sawdust, and those little cans of Tab, promising to erase your cravings and possibly your sense of taste. You try to look interested in rutabagas, but even they seem disappointed. The intercom crackles. A cheerful voice announces today's special, 2 for 1 on frozen TV dinners. Now with bonus dessert. You mentally calculate if a tiny cup of lemon pie qualifies as a serving of fruit. In the next aisle, an avalanche of Wonder Bread looms, impossibly white, promising fluffy happiness in every slice. You grab a loaf of diet bread instead, the texture of insulation, the flavor of hope abandoned. The middle aisles are the true battleground. Here, everything is brighter, saltier, sweeter, and more dangerous. There's a new cereal called Sugar Smacks, and a jungle of canned goods, each more suspicious than the last. You clutch your coupon organizer like a shield and maneuver past the peanut butter, remembering that nut butters are high in fat, according to that magazine article you read at the salon. And then, the Jell-O aisle. The Jell-O lady smiles at you from 100 little boxes, her face a masterpiece of 1960s optimism, undeterred by the existential dread of molded gelatin salads. Just add fruit and cottage cheese, she suggests, as if that will fill the void in your soul. You buy a box anyway, Lime, of course, because somewhere deep inside, you still hope dessert can be calorie-free and emotionally fulfilling. Children shriek near the cookie display. You notice a mom slipping Oreos into her cart while her kids aren't looking. You salute her stealth. You, on the other hand, hover indecisively in front of the snack aisle. Pretzels, maybe? Or rice cakes, the official food of people who have given up on pleasure. You settle on celery, again, because the nutritionist said it burns more calories to chew than it contains, which sounds like propaganda, but you want to believe. You finally make it to the checkout, cart full of produce, skim milk, and enough diet soda to open a very sad cafe. The cashier eyes your purchases, then scans the Jell-O box with a knowing look. She's seen it all. The hopeful celery, the guilt-laden fudge bars, the way women mutter, "This week will be different." You smile, pay, and lug your groceries out, passing a magazine rack one last time. Headlines scream about new miracle diets. You consider buying another copy, just in case this one really is the answer. You drive home, replaying every aisle in your mind, calculating calories and regrets. At least you made it through with dignity mostly intact. The groceries get unloaded, the celery goes into the crisper, and the Jell-O sits on the counter, an edible reminder that in the world of 1960s dieting, hope is always the most tempting ingredient. At the beauty salon, women flip through glossy magazines and exchange the latest diet rumors. The air is thick with hairspray and judgment. Someone whispers about a neighbor who lost 20 pounds and may have also lost her mind. It's a Thursday morning, and the waiting area is a symphony of pastel vinyl and anticipation. The overhead fluorescent light flickers, bouncing off chrome dryers and the occasional rhinestone clip. You settle into your chair, knees pressed together, flipping idly through a magazine that promises new you by new year, in bold, hopeful type. The only thing bolder is the scent of Aquanet clouding the air, already strong enough to fossilize a small bird. Across the room, Doris and Ruth are in mid-conference, voices low but faces animated. The topic isn't politics, the moon landing, or even Doris's husband's questionable bowling scores. It's Linda's dramatic transformation on the hot dog and banana diet. Apparently, she's now half her former size, twice as irritable, and reportedly yelled at her begonias. The women nod, the universal gesture for, well, at least she's thin. Your stylist, Marlene, ushers you to the wash basin, her own bouffant defying gravity and scientific explanation. As she lathers your hair, she leans close and confides, "I heard Barb's going to the spa for a full-body wrap, supposed to take off 10 inches in an hour. I tried it once, nearly fainted from the smell of eucalyptus and disappointment." You both laugh. Because what else can you do? In the 1960s, hope springs eternal and is often lemon-scented. Rollers click into place, the sound of progress. Around you, conversations float like clouds of talcum powder. Magazines change hands. One has a 5-page spread on the drinking man's diet vodka. Yes, bread, no. Another features a celebrity meal plan, mostly celery, the occasional steak, and a single forbidden chocolate truffle that must be confessed in writing. There's speculation about which Weight Watchers leader is secretly cheating, and mild horror at the idea of anyone admitting to a third helping of potato salad at last Sunday's barbecue. You check your reflection in the mirror. Hairline rimmed with cotton, cape fastened tightly at your neck. You look less like a glamorous starlet and more like an extra in a sci-fi film about calorie-counting robots. But there's comfort here. Everyone is in on the joke. Someone suggests that all the lost pounds are hiding in the back room with the broken dryers. You nod along, grateful for the soft, strange sisterhood of suffering. As Marlene teases your hair into shape, the conversation turns tactical. If you drink a glass of ice water before dinner, it burns more calories, claims Ruth, whose confidence is matched only by her willingness to try anything once. And if you sleep in a girdle, you'll wake up thinner, adds Doris, who tried it last week and now has the marks to prove it. Tips are traded like state secrets, and every new rumor is treated with the reverence of medical science. Because in a world where food is the enemy, knowledge really is power. The dryer hums, magazines rustle, and a cloud of final hold hairspray seals in every follicle and every whispered confession. When you emerge, helmet hair intact, you gather your purse, your latest diet rumor, and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, next week you'll be the subject of the salon's admiration, or at least its envy. As you walk out, the door jingling behind you, the world feels a little lighter. Or maybe that's just the aquanet. You step back into the sunlight, head held high, hair unspeakably solid, and remember, beauty might be fleeting, but the salon's stories like calories have a way of lingering. You watch as slender women on TV promise you can be thin, happy, and desirable if you just drink this chalky shake. You wonder if they're actually robots, or just really good at pretending not to be hungry. The living room is bathed in that blue evening glow, the sound of a sitcom laugh track drifting from the console TV. Between reruns of Bewitched and the local news, the parade begins. Each commercial break is a small-scale assault on your self-esteem. The products change, shakes, pills, miracle meals in cans, but the message never does. If you're hungry, it's your fault. If you're not thin, it's definitely your fault. And if you are thin but not deliriously happy, maybe try our new appetite suppressant. Now in fun tropical flavors. You watch as a model in a tight sheath dress spins across the screen, beaming like she's just inherited a yacht. She takes a sip from a frosted glass, sighs contentedly, and practically winks at the camera. Delicious. Only 70 calories. There is no mention of the aftertaste, or the fact that the shake is roughly the consistency of drywall paste. Off-screen, you imagine a team of ad men with Brill-creamed hair, sketching the next campaign on cocktail napkins, murmuring, "Women will buy anything if you tell them they're not enough yet." Every third commercial is a variation on the same theme. A worried housewife bites her lip, steps onto a scale, then is rescued by a magical box of powder, or a salad dressing that promises to melt the pounds away. She's always rescued, never empowered, never allowed to simply be. Sometimes a husband materializes to pat her hand, assuring her she'll look wonderful once she fits into her old prom dress. You resist the urge to throw your slipper at the screen. The slogans are sharp as needles. Watch those curves disappear. Be the envy of the PTA. Turn heads at your high school reunion. Madison Avenue knows every pressure point. You start to wonder if advertising agencies have hidden cameras in your bathroom. They probably do, and if they don't, they're just really, really good at guessing what keeps you awake at night. There's a commercial for Diet Right Cola, blonde women in capri pants, laughing on a beach, clutching frosty bottles. Apparently, drinking this magical beverage transforms you into a carefree nymph, forever immune to the horrors of bloating. You make a mental note. Buy more Diet Right, just in case. The next spot features a figure-friendly casserole demonstrated by a woman who confesses that she used to be twice the woman I am now. You wonder if this is a compliment or a warning. You scan your living room for witnesses. Just you, the dog, and a bowl of carrot sticks. The dog, for the record, doesn't care if you're thin. He just wants you to drop a cracker. You think about how none of these women on TV ever seem to eat, unless it's the product they're paid to endorse. Even the salads look suspiciously dry. Every so often, a more sinister ad appears. A pill for nighttime weight loss. Take it before bed, and wake up to a new you. No mention of side effects, or the growing suspicion that your dreams will now be in black and white and set entirely in a gymnasium. By the end of the hour, your confidence has gone the way of the Lindy Hop, outdated, faintly ridiculous, and probably never coming back. Still, you make a note to buy the shake mix. Maybe this one will be different. Maybe you'll become the woman in the ad, radiant, slim, and blissfully unaware of her own hunger. You turn off the TV, brush imaginary crumbs from your lap, and tell yourself, it's only advertising. But as you pass the mirror on the way to bed, you can't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, tomorrow will be the day you finally fit into the promise they keep selling. Lunch is a handful of iceberg lettuce, a tomato wedge, and a splash of vinegar. There's tuna somewhere, but it's mostly mayonnaise and regret. You chew slowly, imagining a world where food isn't the enemy. The kitchen clock ticks, mocking you with every second you spend assembling what the magazines call a figure-friendly meal. You stare at the plate, a pale green tribute to austerity, wondering if it's technically food or just a modernist still life. You fork a limp lettuce leaf, analyze its structural integrity, and remind yourself this is what discipline tastes like. Water, with a hint of chlorophyll and existential longing. The tomato wedge, bravely occupying the north quadrant of the plate, offers little relief. It's underripe and suspiciously firm. The kind of tomato that looks good in a supermarket ad, but tastes like a suggestion. You give it a sprinkle of salt and hope it will perform. It doesn't. Your tuna salad, so-called, is a pale, lumpy heap perched on a lettuce leaf throne. If you dig deep, you might find actual tuna. But mostly it's just light mayonnaise. Heavy on the tang, light on the joy. The whole dish is designed less to satisfy and more to serve as a reminder. Eating is not about pleasure, it's about restraint. The only comfort is the splash of vinegar, which wakes up your sinuses and your doubts. You wonder if you can count the calories in the vinegar, or if vinegar exists in a magical realm where nothing counts. Across the table, your kids devour grilled cheese sandwiches, their fingers slick with butter, their faces smug with satisfaction. You watch them in silence, a solitary figure exiled to the island of denial. You make small talk. How was school? But your mind is busy running numbers. How many calories in a slice of cheese? What if you just licked the corner? Would that register as cheating? You briefly consider the philosophy of, if no one sees you eat it, does it count? But you already know the answer. Meanwhile, the magazines have you convinced that lunch is your weight loss opportunity window. One good meal choice, and you'll be halfway to the body you're supposed to want. You leaf through Ladies' Home Journal for support, but the only recipes involve cottage cheese and social anxiety. There are pictures of glamorous women in pastel kitchens, beaming over their salads as if they've never known hunger or hope. You finish your salad slowly, chewing each bite with the reverence of someone trying to stretch a snack into a meal. You chase it with a glass of ice water, because cold water burns more calories, according to Ruth from the beauty salon. It also freezes your teeth and your spirit. You glance at the clock again, still 2 hours until dinner. You consider eating a stick of celery, but the memory of breakfast grapefruit and dry toast keeps your ambitions in check. Afternoon stretches ahead, full of errands and the vague ache of unfulfilled longing. You tidy up the lunch dishes, scraping mayonnaise off the kids' plates with a quiet, almost monastic envy. You debate licking the spoon, but settle for sniffing it, convincing yourself you're not hungry, just resetting your palate. You try to focus on other things, laundry, phone calls, that pile of bills on the counter, but your mind keeps wandering back to the land of cheese and bread. Eventually, you surrender to a cup of black coffee, the 1960s housewife's answer to every problem. Hunger, fatigue, existential dread. As the afternoon sun slants across the kitchen, you make yourself a promise. Tomorrow, you'll eat a real lunch. Tomorrow, you'll rebel. But for today, you'll live on lettuce, vinegar, and the hope that someday food will feel like a friend again. You pop open a can of Tab, the official beverage of hope and aspartame. It tastes vaguely like aluminum and sadness, but you tell yourself it's better than calories. It's 1965, and everywhere you look, women are sipping pink cans with an air of forced optimism. The advertisements promise liberation, a slender future with every carbonated sip. You eye the can, marveling at how something so stylish could taste so profoundly disappointing. Tab doesn't sparkle. It fizzes with the energy of a tired marching band, all muted notes and chemical undertones. You take a second swig, hoping the flavor will improve. It does not. Each sip is an exercise in cognitive dissonance. Your mouth expects sweetness, your brain receives metallic bitterness, and your tongue wonders what it did to deserve this. Still, you press on. After all, it's the 1960s, and drinking Tab is practically a civic duty for the diet-conscious woman. You want to believe. You need to believe. The commercials show impossibly thin women on beaches, laughing and playing volleyball. None of them seem concerned about the aftertaste, or the fact that one day scientists will debate whether saccharin is actually toxic. In the real world, Tab is the only thing between you and the temptation of actual soda. The kids drink real Coke, with its cheerful red label and flavor that hints at joy. Your husband drinks black coffee and beer, two beverages that have never once claimed to help anyone lose an inch. You pour Tab over ice in your tallest glass, as if presentation might redeem it. You add a lemon wedge for flair, just like the magazine suggests. And even use a striped straw. For a brief moment, you feel sophisticated, like a woman in a commercial. Thin, elegant, slightly dead inside. You raise your glass to your reflection in the kitchen window and toast your own resilience. The truth is, Tab is less a pleasure and more a ritual. You drink it at the beauty salon, swapping diet rumors over its distinctive aftertaste. You drink it at lunch, convincing yourself that bubbly means filling. You drink it in the car, after a PTA meeting, when all you really want is a milkshake, but all you allow yourself is disappointment, lightly chilled. You offer a can to your friend Carol from accounting. She grimaces, then smiles, and the two of you share a look, part solidarity, part silent plea for mercy. Together, you reminisce about the good old days when you could drink real soda without guilt or suspicious chemicals. You laugh, but it's the kind of laugh that sounds a little hollow around the edges. Sometimes, you let yourself fantasize about rebellion. What if you just poured yourself a glass of actual sugar-sweetened cola, right here in broad daylight? What if you put your feet up, drank a Coke, and didn't apologize? the fantasy never lasts. The tab can is always there, pink and demanding, a tiny monument to sacrifice and the pursuit of a thinner self. Afternoon wears on, and the can empties. But the aftertaste lingers, a ghost of artificial cherry, aluminum, and resolve. You promise yourself you'll get used to it. Everyone gets used to it. You look at the empty can, the pink logo fading in the sunlight, and think, maybe tomorrow I'll treat myself. Maybe tomorrow I'll drink something just because it tastes good. For today, tab is your companion, your penance, your bitter badge of 1960s diet culture. In the end, you rinse out the can, toss it in the bin, and go about your day. You're not thinner, not happier, but at least you're still trying. That's what tab is for. A fizzy, flavorless reminder that hope, like saccharin, sometimes comes with a very strange aftertaste. At the PTA meeting, someone organizes a slimming challenge. You and a dozen other moms nervously eye each other, all pretending you're just here for the children. The folding chairs are set in a loose semicircle, the aroma of burnt coffee and chalk dust wafting through the school library. You clutch a notepad in one hand, a half-chewed pen in the other, trying to look focused on fundraising but acutely aware of the bathroom scale placed ominously in the corner, like a silent, steel referee at a gladiator match. Someone arranges a sign-up sheet next to a stack of before and after charts, promising a friendly competition to support each other. The air bristles with the quiet terror of women about to share their secrets. By ounce, Janet from the next block stands up and volunteers to go first. She's wearing her gold dress, and you can't help but notice the way the room collectively inhales, almost as if holding its breath might help her number come out lower. One by one, the mothers approach the scale, shoes off, dignity packed away in their purses. The needle spins, then settles, and each woman smiles bravely while scribbling down her starting point for the group to see. It's like a game show with no prizes and a lot of deeply suppressed panic. You try to act nonchalant as your turn approaches, pretending to take interest in the bake sale sign-up. Would chocolate chip cookies count as a sabotage strategy? Probably. You laugh nervously with Carol, who confesses she's been surviving on grapefruit and tab for 3 days, just in case. You nod, because in the world of PTA slimming challenges, preparation is part starvation, part stage fright. When it's finally your moment, you slip off your shoes, step up, and try to look as though you're simply pondering the mysteries of the universe. You imagine yourself as a contestant on The Price is Right, hoping for applause and not a buzzer. The number is read aloud and dutifully logged on the communal chart. You smile, but your insides are staging a coup. Afterward, the room shifts into support group mode. There are handouts, recipes for 0-point soup, tips for beating cravings, a list of acceptable snacks, all written in cheerful fonts. Someone suggests weekly weigh-ins, and everyone agrees. Though the mood is less rah-rah, and more please don't let me be the heaviest next time. For the next hour, the conversation bounces between weight loss tips and legitimate school business. The agenda items blur. Field day? Yes. School play? Of course. Public body measurement and subtle social hierarchy? Absolutely. Snacks are provided, but not the fun kind. A plate of carrot sticks, celery, and unsalted rice cake sits on the table, untouched except by toddlers who haven't yet learned the language of deprivation. You sip lukewarm coffee and try not to watch Janet eating an entire apple with the calculated precision of a surgeon. There's talk of prizes for the biggest loser, gift certificates, a new casserole dish, maybe even the coveted title of most improved. You wonder if most tolerant of lettuce is a category. Everyone discusses strategies, skipping dinner, eating on salad plates, hiding the family scale in the attic and pretending it doesn't exist except at these meetings. The meeting ends with a collective promise to do better this week. You all disperse into the night, clutching your motivational handouts and carrot sticks, united in hunger and competitive spirit. As you walk to your car, you share a glance with another mom, a mix of solidarity, embarrassment, and the knowledge that next week you'll all be back, stepping onto the scale and pretending it's just another act of motherly self-sacrifice. And as you drive home, stomach rumbling, you wonder if the kids have any cookies left. You hope not. That's next week's sabotage plan. Every magazine promises the new thin, as if thinness is a destination you can drive to if you just follow enough rules. The covers feature women who haven't eaten since the Eisenhower administration. You sit in the living room, knees tucked under you, a stack of glossy magazines balanced precariously on the coffee table. The afternoon sun glints off the high-gloss covers, Vogue, Ladies' Home Journal, Glamour, all promising, with a kind of desperate cheer, that you, too, can become streamlined for summer, if you just surrender all earthly pleasures, and maybe also your pancreas. You flip to the first spread. How to drop a dress size in a weekend. There's a chart, a meal plan, and an entire column dedicated to mindful chewing, as if all that stands between you and transcendence is a slower jaw. The advice is dizzying. Eat grapefruit before every meal, avoid eating after 6 p.m., and always wear lipstick, even when alone. Thinness, apparently, requires not just discipline but a deep commitment to aesthetics. You look at your bare toes and suddenly feel underdressed for your own living room. The models lounge in impossibly crisp shift dresses, perched on pastel settees or windswept beaches, all elbows and angular knees. Their hair is glossy, their skin flawless, their facial expressions either vaguely melancholy or suspiciously smug. You search their eyes for any sign of actual hunger. Nothing. Just the placid serenity of someone who has never sniffed a cinnamon roll with longing. Each page offers a new prescription for perfection. There's the lemon water cleanse, promising to flush out toxins, and possibly your will to live. A sidebar trumpets the Sleeping Beauty diet, lose weight by sleeping through meals. You try to imagine explaining that one to your family. Sorry kids, dinner's cancelled. I'm working on my waistline and my REM cycles. The children would riot. Articles about wardrobe essentials demand a body type roughly equivalent to a broomstick. This season's must-have, the shift dress, ideal for boyish figures and invisible hips. You try to picture yourself in one of these outfits. In your mind's eye, you look less like Twiggy and more like a confused art teacher on field day. You make a note to look up boyish in the dictionary, just in case there's a definition that includes has eaten bread in the last decade. In the margins, you spot tiny, guilt-laden reminders. A calorie saved is a pound lost. Think thin. Nothing tastes as good as being admired feels. It's a steady drumbeat, a kind of gentle hypnosis, lulling you into the belief that your happiness is a simple math equation. Subtract enough, and you'll finally be enough. You reach a fashion quiz. Are you doing all you can to be your best? The questions are less quiz and more confession. How many times have you skipped dessert this month? How often do you accidentally eat after dark? Are you still wearing last year's skirt? You tally your points and discover, once again, that you fall somewhere between work in progress and please try harder. And yet, you keep flipping, searching for the secret, the shortcut, the magic pill. The magazines never run out of advice. Swap meals for shakes. Replace bread with celery. Do leg lifts during commercials. Never sit down without first engaging your core. If it all gets to be too much, treat yourself to a new lipstick, calorie-free, thank goodness. You close the magazine and set it on the stack. For a moment, you stare out the window. wondering what it would be like to live in a world where women measure happiness in laughter, not inches. But for now, the promise of the new thin lingers, shiny and impossible, just within arm's reach, next to a bowl of guiltless, flavorless fruit. Your doctor reminds you that a moment on the lips is a lifetime on the hips. He writes a prescription for diet pills and tells you to smile more. You wonder if medical school includes a class in shaming. The waiting room is decorated in two colors: faded mint and medical anxiety. You flip through a magazine dated 3 years ago, its cover model serenely holding a salad and a tennis racket. Your name is called, and you step onto the vinyl tile, already preparing yourself for the weigh-in, a ritual as old as Western medicine and twice as demoralizing. The nurse smiles as she slides the weights on the balance scale, but her eyes betray a kind of quiet sympathy. You try to exhale as much as possible, removing shoes, jewelry, and, for a brief moment, the burden of hope. In the exam room, the doctor enters briskly, white coat swishing like a flag of authority. He barely glances up from your chart. He asks about your progress, meaning the numbers, not your mood, your sleep, or how many times you've had to fake enthusiasm for cottage cheese this week. He looks over his glasses and asks, "Have you been watching what you eat?" As if you could possibly stop watching, it's all you do, counting and measuring every crumb like a human abacus. The next part is as predictable as a sitcom rerun. He pokes your midsection, listens to your heart, and launches into a familiar sermon. Calories in, calories out. Cut the bread. Skip dessert. It's all about willpower. You nod, trying to look grateful, though a small part of you fantasizes about asking if he's ever eaten lettuce for lunch 5 days straight and still felt hungry. You wonder if he lives in a parallel universe where food is fuel and not the emotional roller coaster you ride daily. He brings out a pamphlet, The Sensible Woman's Guide to Permanent Slimness, and you accept it with a smile that feels like borrowed clothing. The advice inside is a patchwork of platitudes and science barely evolved from the Middle Ages. Chew each bite 37 times, drink water before meals, take the stairs, and, if all else fails, consider his newest prescription. He writes it with the flourish of a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Diet pills. The wonder drug of the era. He hands over the script, assures you they're safe and effective, and says, "Just don't get carried away." You ask about side effects, and he waves them off, maybe a little nervousness, some trouble sleeping, a touch of dry mouth. It's all for the greater good. Your future self, the one in the chart, the one in the magazine. You wonder if they'd prescribe the same thing to a man who complained about his waistband. You'll never know. The double standard is thicker than the pamphlet. As the visit winds down, he tells you to smile more. It will help with motivation. You want to ask if there's a study on the caloric expenditure of forced grinning. Instead, you say, "Thank you." Gather your dignity and collect your purse, prescription, and yet another handout. Back in the car, you toss the pamphlet onto the passenger seat. You glance in the rearview mirror and wonder if you're any closer to happiness or just another appointment away from a new set of instructions. The diet pills rattle in your bag, promising speed, thinness, and maybe a little existential dread. At home, you fill your glass with water, pop the first pill, and try to smile. It doesn't help. You resolve, as you so often do, to try again tomorrow. Fewer calories, more willpower, and maybe, just maybe, a doctor who sees you as more than a number. Until then, you'll keep following the script, chasing the cure, and searching for a prescription that works for more than just the scale. You prepare a full meal for everyone else. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans swimming in butter. Then you sit down to a dry broiled fish and a single carrot. No seconds, you remind yourself. The kitchen smells like comfort, crispy chicken, creamy potatoes, melted butter, and just a hint of resentment wafting from your side of the table. You stand at the stove, ladling gravy over fluffy starch and watching your family gather with the excitement of people about to discover fire for the first time. The children squabble over drumsticks. Your husband pours himself an extra heap of potatoes, the spoon clinking cheerfully. Meanwhile, your plate is a blank canvas of virtue, an unseasoned, broiled fish fillet, and a carrot so lonely it should have its own children's book. You sit down, smoothing your napkin across your lap as if that's going to make your dinner more appetizing. You try to focus on the positive. Fish is heart healthy. Carrots are good for the eyes. Mashed potatoes are apparently only good for people who haven't read this month's issue of Ladies' Home Journal. You smile through it, pretending you're not envying your 6-year-old's second helping. Conversation ebbs and flows around you, punctuated by the sounds of forks scraping gravy from plates. The kids ask for more butter, more chicken, more everything. You sip water between bites of bland fish, chewing slowly, hoping it lasts longer if you pretend it's something else, anything else. Salmon at a fancy restaurant. Pizza in another universe. Anything not broiled, beige, and tasting of nutritional compromise. Your husband notices your plate and raises an eyebrow. That's all you're having? You assure him with forced cheer that yes, this is plenty. You even say you aren't that hungry tonight, as if anyone in the history of dieting has ever believed that. He shrugs, then returns to his feast, and you wonder what it must be like to live in a world where dinner is a pleasure, not a performance. The conversation shifts to tomorrow's plans, school events, grocery lists. You half listen, half mourn the absence of gravy from your life. Every time someone reaches for seconds, you remind yourself, no seconds. You tell yourself you're staying strong, but it feels more like you're starring in a one-woman show called Self-Denial, the musical. You're the entire cast, the pit orchestra, and the audience, and the reviews are mixed. As dinner winds down, you gather plates, stacking leftovers that aren't yours. Mashed potatoes with extra butter, chicken thighs you'd eat in a heartbeat, the green beans that, if you're honest, you could probably justify. But they've spent a little too long fraternizing with the butter. You scrape plates, rinse dishes, and try not to think about the cookies hiding in the cupboard or the pie you made for the family. You hum, quietly, more for comfort than out of habit. Later, after the dishes are done and the family is dispersed, TV, homework, a quick nap on the sofa, you return to the kitchen. The smell of dinner lingers. You consider a second carrot, but resist. You pour yourself another glass of water, ice cubes clicking, the sound of restraint. You tell yourself you'll feel proud in the morning, lighter, healthier, ready to take on another day of perfectly measured sadness. You believe it, almost, because in the 1960s, dinner isn't just about eating. It's a test of willpower, a silent contest, a nightly reminder that sometimes the only thing harder than being hungry is pretending you aren't. You head to bed, stomach rumbling, rehearsing your lines for tomorrow's performance. No seconds, thank you. You're nothing if not consistent. You join Weight Watchers, where every meeting is half encouragement, half group confession. There are charts, stickers, and the distant hope of fitting into your goal dress. The first meeting is held in the basement of the Methodist Church. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, flickering slightly, as if they too are nervous about what's about to be revealed. You and a dozen other women shuffle in, clutching little notebooks, and the vague hope that this is finally the answer. The air is thick with coffee, powdered creamer, and the electric charge of collective anxiety. There's a leader, Betty, impeccably coiffed and relentlessly cheerful, who lost 32 pounds last year and never lets anyone forget it. She calls the meeting to order, passing around a clipboard for sign-ins. The agenda is simple: accountability, encouragement, and the sacred way in. You scan the room. Some women are smiling bravely. Others look like they might bolt for the exit if someone mentions cottage cheese again. The way-in happens behind a screen, but it's not exactly private. You can hear every oof and as numbers are logged. You step onto the scale, exhale, and try to levitate, praying your breakfast grapefruit didn't tip the balance. The leader records the number, offering a tight smile and a sticker for progress. You accept it, a little gold star for surviving another week in the calorie trenches. Then comes story time. Sharing victories, Betty calls it. Someone resisted cake at a birthday party. Another walked around the block twice after dinner. There's applause, a few polite cheers, and the unspoken understanding that every victory is measured in teaspoons, not tablespoons. Someone confesses to falling off the wagon at the church potluck. Heads nod in solidarity. There, but for the grace of God, go we all. Charts are unveiled, covered in stickers and hopeful arcs. You search for your name, your numbers, your progress. There's pride in moving the needle, even if it's only a little, and a peculiar shame when the chart stares back at you with unyielding math. It's like being graded for participation in the Hunger Games. After the confessions come the recipes, pages of miracle casseroles built from canned tuna, dry mustard, and the tears of hope. Betty extols the virtues of gelatin desserts and broiled tomatoes, passing out recipe cards as if they're secret weapons. You collect yours, adding it to the growing stack at home, certain you'll try them all someday. Or never. It's a toss-up. Group discussion turns to the goal dress, that one dress, hidden in the back of every closet, still draped in plastic from a more optimistic decade. Someone swears she'll fit into hers by Easter. You make a mental note to at least try yours on, maybe next week, maybe after another round of grapefruit and resolve. As the meeting wraps up, Betty ends with a rallying cry. Remember, ladies, together we can do this. There's applause, part hopeful, part exhausted. You leave with your sticker, your recipes, and a renewed sense of duty. You walk to your car feeling lighter, not in pounds, but in the camaraderie of having survived another public reckoning. At home, you pin your gold star to the fridge and set your gold dress out where you can see it. For tonight, you're bolstered by the power of group support and a little public humiliation. You promise yourself you'll keep coming back, if only for the stories, the stickers, and the sense that maybe, just maybe, you're not in this alone. And if that's not enough, at least you know you'll have something new to confess next week. It's 3 p.m. and the kids want cookies. You nibble on a celery stick, imagining it's a brownie. It isn't. It never will be. The afternoon sun slants across the kitchen, illuminating the forbidden treasures on the counter, a half-empty bag of chocolate chips, a jar of peanut butter, and the unmistakable scent of cookies, still warm from the oven. Your children gather around, their eyes shining with innocent greed as they reach for the plate. They dunk, they savor, they go back for seconds with the careless abandon of people who have never heard the word calorie. You, meanwhile, are locked in a staring contest with a pale green stalk. You crunch the celery, each bite loud enough to wake the neighbors. It tastes of water and quiet resignation, the flavor of sacrifice. You try to focus on its health benefits, mentally reciting every fact you've learned from magazines and Weight Watchers handouts. Negative calories, fiber, vitamins, none of which taste even remotely like chocolate. The children offer you a cookie, all sweetness and generosity. For a split second, you contemplate taking it, just to remember what pleasure feels like. But you wave them off, summoning your best imitation of someone who actually enjoys celery. "No thanks, Mommy's not hungry," you say, lying with a smile that could win an Oscar. They don't question it. They're too busy licking crumbs from their fingers. The clock ticks. You sip black coffee to chase away the taste of defeat. Somewhere in the house, your husband is rooting around for potato chips, humming off-key, completely oblivious to your internal struggle. You wonder what it would be like to eat without a side of guilt, just once, to break the rules and have a cookie in broad daylight, with no one around to judge but the dog. Even he seems disappointed as you offer him a chunk of celery. In the world of 1960s diet culture, snack time is less about hunger and more about discipline. The magazines call it mid-afternoon fuel. The reality feels more like a test you forgot to study for. There are always suggestions for low-calorie snacks: cottage cheese on Melba toast, carrot sticks, half a grapefruit if you're feeling wild. You've tried them all, but nothing fills the void quite like a forbidden cookie. You pace the kitchen, searching the fridge for something, anything, that feels indulgent and doesn't come with consequences. There's a lonely can of Tab, a container of fat-free yogurt, and a box of sugarless gum that's lost its flavor and its will to live. You settle on another celery stick, chewing in solidarity with the other mothers of America, all of you united in your secret, persistent hunger. The kids scatter to the living room, satisfied and sugar-fueled. You stay behind, wiping crumbs from the counter and promising yourself that one day you'll bake cookies just for you. You'll eat them while standing in the kitchen, the whole plate if you want, with no celery in sight. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe when the magazines start telling the truth about what women really want. For now, you toss the celery ends in the trash, wash your hands, and reach for another cup of coffee. The moment passes, the craving fades, and you move on to the next task. Snack time ends not with joy, but with the quiet pride of self-denial. You survived another round. You're still on track. You tell yourself it's worth it. And if, in the silence of the evening, you find a forgotten crumb and pop it into your mouth, you savor it, just for a moment. Like the rebel you are, you take the little blue pill the doctor gave you. You're not sure if you're losing weight or just vibrating through time. Either way, you're not hungry. Breakfast isn't just grapefruit and black coffee anymore. It's science, modern medicine, and a pharmaceutical nudge from your kindly, judgmental physician. The pill sits in your stomach, fizzing with a nervous energy that spreads to your fingertips. The magazines call them miracle aids, and the doctor calls them safe and effective, but you suspect neither of them has tried organizing a sock drawer at 7 a.m., while your heart tap dances to the tune of the Stars and Stripes Forever. You stand in the kitchen, surveying the day's possibilities, all of them turbocharged. Suddenly, it seems reasonable to alphabetize the spice rack, retile the bathroom, and walk to the store instead of driving. Twice, the hunger that haunted you yesterday has evaporated, replaced by a fizzy, caffeinated optimism and the vague sense that you could win a staring contest with the toaster. Your friends at Weight Watchers have started calling them pep pills, and it's become something of a not-so-secret club. Carol swears by hers. She claims she lost 6 pounds in a week and finally finished reorganizing her attic. Barb says she got so much done on diet pills that she's considering running for city council, assuming she ever sleeps again. At every meeting there's a buzz, literal and figurative, as women swap stories about which brand works best and which side effects are just a small price to pay. Your appetite is gone. Lunch arrives and you realize you've forgotten to be hungry. You sip a can of Tab for hydration, stare out the window at the garden, and wonder if you could mow the lawn before noon and still have time to vacuum the curtains. Your thoughts race. Did you forget to call your mother? Are you supposed to be somewhere right now? Maybe you're already there and just haven't noticed. The doctor said there might be minor side effects. Maybe a little dry mouth, maybe a touch of jitters. You drink water, you drink more water, you start to suspect that the neighbor's dog is judging you. But that's probably just the pills talking. You check your pulse, which seems a little overenthusiastic about your current activity, folding towels with the focus of a Navy SEAL. Dinner sneaks up on you. You prepare the family meal, watching them devour mashed potatoes and roast beef while you nibble a carrot with surgical precision. You're not hungry, but you are restless. The thought of dessert doesn't even register. You're already reorganizing your recipe cards by color, season, and glycemic index. As the sun sets, the day's achievements pile up. You've done enough chores for a week. You've skipped enough meals for a month. You try to wind down with a magazine, but the words blur and your foot taps out a Morse code message you can't quite decipher. Your husband asks if you're all right. You smile with all 32 teeth, assuring him you feel just wonderful, a phrase you're not entirely sure you mean. Later, lying in bed, you stare at the ceiling, wide awake, counting imaginary calories leaping over fences. Your mind is racing with plans for tomorrow. Painting the garage, learning French, maybe writing a novel about a woman who never needs to sleep. The doctor says to take the pill again in the morning. You probably will. After all, you're not hungry, you're productive, and the weight is coming off. The only thing heavier is the growing realization that miracle cures come with their own set of mysteries. And so you drift, not to sleep, but to a kind of restless twilight. Hopeful and humming, a little blue pill still fizzing at the center of your carefully controlled life. At a friend's cocktail party, you practice saying, "No thank you. I'm watching my figure," approximately 47 times. The appetizers are tiny, but the social anxiety is enormous. The room buzzes with laughter and the tinkle of ice in mid-century glasses. Platters of canapes circle the living room like tiny edible UFOs, deviled eggs, shrimp on crackers, cheese cubes skewered with party swords. You stand near the punch bowl, armed with a glass of diet ginger ale and a pleasant fixed smile. You didn't come for the food, you tell yourself. You came for the company, the conversation, and the chance to wear that new sheath dress that's just a little too tight around the middle. Every woman in the room seems to have memorized the same script. "Oh, I really shouldn't, just a nibble. Are those olives stuffed with anything fattening?" The men pile their plates, unconcerned, chatting about cars and local politics while you and the other wives compare the relative merits of carrot sticks versus celery. You try to gauge which appetizers can be eaten without later regret. Carrot curls? Safe. Bacon-wrapped anything? Pure scandal. Those cheese puffs? Not unless you're prepared to confess at your next Weight Watchers meeting. You're not alone in your vigilance. Carol from the office is here, fiercely guarding the crudité platter as if it's the last life raft on the Titanic. Barb quietly slips a second cracker onto her napkin when she thinks no one is watching. Doris is doing the French method, nibbling only the insides of cucumber sandwiches and leaving the bread. You've never seen so many breadless sandwiches in one place. As the hostess floats by, offering trays with a dazzling smile, you rehearse your refusal. "No, thank you. I'm watching my figure." You say it so often you wonder if you should have it printed on a button. Sometimes you give in and take something safe. A tomato wedge, a sad little pickled beet, half a celery stick so dry it could double as kindling. You chew slowly, pretending this is what you wanted all along. Conversations turn inevitably to diets. Someone's cousin just lost 10 pounds on the wine and eggs plan. Someone else is swearing off starches, which you suspect is a cry for help. You nod sympathetically, clutching your glass, wondering when it became normal for women to discuss the latest diet in the same breath as PTA fundraisers and the weather. Your husband returns with a plate piled high. He doesn't ask if you want anything. He knows better by now. You study the curve of his mashed potato mound, the shine of butter glistening on his roast beef, and feel a small pang of envy mixed with admiration. You wonder what it must be like to eat without guilt, to enjoy food just because it's there, not because it fits into a chart or a challenge. The evening stretches on, the drinks flow, laughter rises, but you're quietly counting everything: bites, calories, refusals, silent victories. Each successful no, thank you earns you a private gold star, and each moment of temptation resisted feels like a small battle won in a never-ending war. You sneak a glance at the dessert table, and for a fleeting second, contemplate rebellion, a cookie, a sliver of cake, anything not made of fiber. But the party winds down, and you leave with your dignity intact and your calorie count on target. You slide into your coat, say your goodbyes, and ride home in the quiet hum of the car. Your stomach as empty as your resolve is full. Tomorrow, there will be leftovers in the fridge and the memory of 100 polite refusals. You survived the buffet of judgment, another night, another victory, another story for the Weight Watchers meeting. And maybe, just maybe, next time you'll have the cake. Or at least a whole cracker. You take the quiz in Ladies' Home Journal. Is your figure sabotaging your happiness? You check yes for every answer. Then go back and pick some no's for variety. It's a Sunday afternoon and you're curled on the sofa, magazine open, a number 2 pencil poised above a quiz that promises to reveal your secret to lasting self-esteem. The headline is cheerful but menacing, the sort of encouragement that always comes with a sting. Are you doing enough to be your very best? The questions begin innocently. Do you start each day with positive affirmations? You glance at your reflection in the window, wonder if get it together counts. As you move through the quiz, the questions grow bolder, poking at every hidden insecurity. How often do you weigh yourself? Do you avoid desserts at social events? Has anyone complimented your waistline this month? Each answer is scored. Never, rarely, sometimes, always, as if happiness were a math equation and your thighs a variable x. You dutifully check the boxes, but halfway through, you realize every option leads to the same verdict. You could be thinner, happier, and just a bit more disciplined if you'd only try harder. You try to be honest, but it's impossible. If you answer truthfully, you risk a diagnosis of needs immediate improvement. If you fudge the answers, you earn a fleeting moment of pride until the next page, where the scoring guide inevitably hints that you're still falling short. The magazine never actually says, "You're fine as you are." The closest you get is, with just a few simple changes, you'll be your best self in no time. You imagine your best self. She's probably somewhere in Connecticut, smiling in a lemon-yellow cardigan, oblivious to cookies and doubt. One section is devoted to temptation control. The quiz asks if you've ever sneaked a snack after dinner, as if the act itself were a sin on par with tax evasion. Do you ever reward yourself with food? The answer, of course, is always. Do you ever eat standing up? Who knew vertical snacking could be a moral failing? You start to wonder if the real quiz is, how many ways can you invent to feel bad about being hungry? There are bonus questions. Do you keep a food diary? Only in your head. Do you celebrate holidays with cake? Absolutely. Have you tried this month's miracle diet? Do magazine quizzes count as a diet? Each yes adds a tally to the column of guilt. Each no lands in the bucket labeled "could try harder." At the end, the magazine offers a key to your self-love score. If you scored 20 or higher, congratulations. You're on your way to self-respect. If you scored 10, 19, you need to refocus your priorities. Below 10, time for a complete overhaul. There's no option for you're a human being, and it's okay. The last instruction. Pin this page to your mirror as a daily reminder. You decide the recycling bin is just as motivational. You close the magazine, toss your pencil aside, and stare at the ceiling. In the 1960s, happiness is measured by inches and answered with quizzes written by people who probably haven't seen the inside of a bakery since Eisenhower. You imagine writing your own quiz. Did you get through today? Are you still here? Have you laughed? Even once? At the absurdity of it all? If the answer is yes, even just sometimes, maybe you're doing better than the score suggests. You put the magazine away and resolve to measure your self-worth in moments, not numbers. And if you forget, well, there's always next month's quiz to remind you just how far you've come, or haven't. Lying in bed, you tally every bite you took that day. You promise yourself that tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow, you'll eat less and exercise more, or maybe just invent time travel and go back to the 1950s. The house is finally quiet. The children are asleep, the television has gone dark, and the only sound is the soft hum of the refrigerator down the hall, guarding tomorrow's temptations. You lie perfectly still, hands folded over your stomach like you're afraid it might wander off for a midnight snack without you. This is the most exhausting part of the day. Not the cooking, not the errands, not the pretending, but the remembering. You replay breakfast first, the grapefruit, the dry toast. That tiny smear of regret when you thought about butter. That was good, very controlled. Then lunch. Iceberg lettuce, vinegar, the tuna situation. You pause here, frowning slightly, trying to remember if you took one spoonful too many. Surely not. You wouldn't do that. Not on a weekday. Your mind moves on to the afternoon. The celery, the coffee, the brief, shameful moment when you considered licking the peanut butter knife. Did you actually lick it? Or did you just think about licking it? The distinction feels legally important. You decide thinking probably counts as half a calorie and resolve to subtract it somewhere else. Dinner floats into focus. The broiled fish, the carrot. No seconds. You did well there. Exceptionally well. You ignore the image of your husband mopping gravy with bread and focus instead on your own discipline. Discipline is comforting. Discipline means you're trying. Trying means tomorrow might be better. Tomorrow always might be better. You turn onto your side, fluff the pillow, and stare at the faint outline of the ceiling. Somewhere in the dark, a clock ticks. You count seconds instead of sheep, calories instead of dreams. Every number has weight. Every choice echoes. You wonder what it would feel like to fall asleep without reviewing the day like a courtroom transcript. The magazines say you should visualize success before bed. So you picture yourself thinner, lighter, walking effortlessly in a crisp dress that doesn't pinch or accuse. In this fantasy, you eat normally, but modestly. You laugh freely. You are admired, but not hungry. It's a very careful dream. Then reality creeps back in. The diet pills on the nightstand, the scale in the bathroom, the gold dress waiting patiently in the closet like a disappointed relative. You promise yourself that tomorrow you'll do everything right. No snacking, extra walking, more water, less wanting. The promise is soothing. It wraps around your thoughts like a lullaby. Tomorrow is full of possibility because it hasn't happened yet. Tomorrow hasn't failed you. Tomorrow doesn't remember the cookie crumb you ate standing over the sink last week. Your breathing slows. The calorie math blurs. Numbers soften at the edges. You tell yourself you're proud for surviving the day, for sticking to the plan, for not giving up entirely. In the 1960s, this is what self-control looks like. Quiet, lonely, and performed mostly in the dark. As sleep finally starts to pull you under, one last thought drifts through your mind. Not about food, not about weight, but about rest. Just rest. A few hours where no one asks you to be smaller, better, or more disciplined. Just you, breathing, existing, allowed to take up space in your own bed. Tomorrow can wait. For now, you sleep. You remind your daughter to finish her dinner, then silently count the calories in her plate. You want her to love herself, but you're not sure how to model that when the world keeps moving the finish line. You watch her push peas around with her fork, a 7-year-old deep in negotiations with a single bite of chicken. 3 more bites, you say, but your voice wavers. At her age, food is fuel for running, growing, and pretending the living room carpet is hot lava. At your age, food is math, points, pounds, and the careful avoidance of pleasure. You envy her innocence, the way she licks jam from her fingers without flinching or apology. She glances at your plate, which is already cleared. "Aren't you hungry, Mom?" she asks, blue eyes wide. You assure her you ate earlier, which is mostly true if you count the celery stick at 3 p.m. and the sip of tab you used to wash it down. She accepts this, then takes a heroic bite, unconcerned about the world's opinion of her chubby cheeks or strong legs. You hope she holds on to that confidence forever, but you know the odds are stacked against her. The magazines pile up on the coffee table, their covers a parade of promises and impossible bodies. They're always just within reach, offering quizzes and advice on how to be your best self, never explaining what happens if you're just yourself. You catch her sometimes, turning the glossy pages, eyes snagging on photos of women in perfect dresses, with perfect hair and impossible smiles. She doesn't understand yet, but you see the seeds being planted. At school, the messages multiply. The other girls compare lunchboxes, trading cookies and gossip about who brings healthy snacks. The boys are still blissfully unaware, burning off calories in gym class and after-school chaos, but the girls notice. Your daughter mentions that her friend is on a diet because she wants to be a ballerina. You want to protest, but you also remember being her age, how quickly admiration turns into comparison. In private, you wrestle with your own reflection. You want to set a good example. Eat well. Move often. Love your body out loud. But then you catch yourself sucking in your stomach as you pass the hall mirror, frowning at the shape of your arms, measuring your worth in the gap between buttons on your favorite dress. You hope she doesn't notice. But you know children are experts at studying the adults in their lives. You try to balance it out. You praise her strength, her cleverness, her quick wit. You tell her she's smart, funny, brave. Sometimes you even believe it yourself. But every so often, you slip, just a sigh as you step on the scale, a muttered wish that your jeans were looser. The cycle continues. You tell her food is fuel, but treat it like a landmine. You urge her to love herself, but treat your own body like a problem to be solved. Bedtime arrives. You tuck her in, brush hair from her forehead, and promise her that she's perfect, exactly as she is. She hugs you tight, and for a moment you believe it too. The world outside is relentless. But in this quiet moment, there's hope. When she finally drifts to sleep, you sit in the kitchen, thinking about all the ways you want her to be free from the burdens you inherited. You resolve, again, to break the pattern, to let her see you eat the cookie, to laugh when you spill ice cream, to choose joy over judgment whenever you can. Because maybe, if you fake it long enough, you'll start to believe it. And maybe she will too. It's midnight. The house is quiet. You tiptoe to the kitchen, open the fridge, and eat a slice of cold meatloaf with your fingers. You promise yourself it's the last time, until tomorrow, when the diet starts again. The linoleum is cold against your bare feet as you move silently, a culinary burglar on a mission. Every creak in the floorboards sounds like a siren, but no one stirs. Not the children who sleep like logs after a day of sugar and sun, nor your husband, who could sleep through a tornado. You open the refrigerator door, and the faint blue light bathes you in a guilty glow. illuminating last night's leftovers and your own midnight resolve. You scan the shelves for something satisfying but not too damning. The carrot sticks look judgmental. The fat-free yogurt is practically sneering. And the Jell-O, quivering on its shelf, seems too cheerful for your mood. Your gaze falls on the meatloaf. It's dense, cold, and absolutely not part of your meal plan. But at this hour, there's a strange honesty in it. No measuring, no pretense, just hunger and opportunity. You take a slice with your fingers, no plate, no fork, no witnesses. The first bite is bliss. The second is penance. And by the third, you're already negotiating with yourself about what you'll do to make up for it tomorrow. 5 extra sit-ups? Another day of grapefruit? An enthusiastic lap around the block? Your mind races with small, creative punishments, but your stomach is grateful for the truce. The kitchen is the only place where you can let your guard down. In the silence, you don't have to explain your choices or refuse food or smile as someone asks, "Are you sure you should eat that?" You just are, a woman, alone with her cravings and a slice of leftover meatloaf, rewriting the rules for 5 delicious minutes. You close the fridge, wipe your hands on a towel, and glance at your reflection in the darkened kitchen window. For a split second, you don't see guilt or failure or numbers. You just see someone who wanted something and took it. There's a rebellious freedom in that, a quiet middle finger to diet charts, to calorie counts, to every magazine cover that promised salvation through self-denial. You climb the stairs in the dark, careful not to wake the house, already composing the speech you'll give yourself in the morning. Tomorrow, you'll be good. Tomorrow, you'll skip breakfast, say no to cookies, pretend celery is a treat. You believe it? Sort of. Every day is the first day of the rest of your diet, and midnight is the reset button, erasing the last 24 hours of striving and small betrayals. In bed, you stare at the ceiling, the taste of meatloaf lingering. You try to make peace with yourself. You think of all the women in all the houses across America, each with her own secret midnight moment, each with her own little bargain with the dawn. Maybe you're not alone, after all. Maybe this is just part of being human, imperfect, hungry, forgiving, and always hopeful for a new start. You roll over, close your eyes, and drift towards sleep. Tomorrow, the scale will wait, and the celery will be crisp, and the world will once again expect you to conquer your cravings. But tonight, for one quiet moment, you let yourself have what you want. You promise it's the last time. But if you're honest, that promise is as soft and changeable as a slice of midnight meatloaf. And maybe, just maybe, that's okay. It's midnight. The house is quiet. You tiptoe to the kitchen, open the fridge, and eat a slice of cold meatloaf with your fingers. You promise yourself it's the last time, until tomorrow when the diet starts again. The clock glows in the darkness. A quiet reminder that reasonable people are asleep and respectable people are not prowling for leftovers. But here you are, the kitchen linoleum cold beneath your feet, every step a covert operation. You've mastered the art of silent movement. No lights, no creaking drawers, no dog trailing behind to bear witness. Just you and the irresistible, quietly humming beacon that is the refrigerator. You open the door, squinting into the pale, unflattering light. Inside, a landscape of moral compromises. Carrot sticks floating in Tupperware, the last wedge of last week's Jell-O, and, calling out with the confidence of forbidden fruit, a plate of cold meatloaf, wrapped in wax paper. You could ignore it. You could close the fridge and return to bed. But you don't. The first bite is cold, dense, savory, a direct line to a simpler, more honest hunger. There's no ceremony, no plate, no judgment, no calorie counting, just satisfaction. For a moment, you're not a dieter, a mother, or a measured, well-behaved woman. You're a creature, obeying instinct, eating what tastes good, alone in the quiet dark. You savor the flavor, feeling almost rebellious, almost free. And then the rationalizations begin. You remind yourself, it's protein. It's not cake or pie or a slab of frosted cinnamon bread. It's not even the leftover potatoes, which you consider before remembering you'll have to reheat them and risk detection. The meatloaf is the perfect midnight companion. No fuss, no evidence, nothing left behind but a faint, salty memory. Still, the guilt creeps in. You try to negotiate with yourself. Tomorrow, you'll walk an extra block. You'll skip breakfast. You'll eat only grapefruit for the next 48 hours. The promise is familiar, a contract you've made 100 times and broken almost as often. You've read in magazines that willpower is like a muscle. Yours, at midnight, is more like a spaghetti noodle, soft, flexible, and mostly decorative. You tiptoe back upstairs, every step rehearsed, and slip beneath the covers as quietly as you left. Your husband snores on, blissfully unaware of your midnight adventure. You lie there, equal parts contented and regretful, feeling the cool weight of a small, delicious secret. You promise yourself that this is it, the last time, the absolute final snack. You'll start over in the morning, but you know the truth, deep down, as the world fades into sleep. This cycle is as old as time: hunger, denial, craving, indulgence, regret, resolve. Each day is a new opportunity to be good, to be perfect, to finally master the endless loop of want and willpower. Each night is a reminder that you're human, not a machine, and sometimes being human means eating meatloaf with your fingers at midnight. As you drift off, you hope for gentler dreams. Dreams where food is just food, and eating isn't a confession or a performance, but a small, necessary comfort. Maybe tomorrow, you'll do better. Or maybe you'll just be kinder to yourself. For now, you're fed, you're warm, and you've survived another day in the land of impossible standards. Tomorrow, the diet begins again. But tonight, you rest. Meatloaf and all. You pack your child's lunch with love, envy, and exactly 2 apple slices. At school, the moms eye each other's brown bags like a game of calorie poker. Who's sending sandwiches, who's smuggling in cookies, and whose kid will be the first to reveal a Twinkie and trigger a moral panic. You wonder if PTA will launch an investigation. Morning begins with the assembly line: bread, peanut butter, the occasional celery stick, because fiber is love, and the ritual slicing of the apple. Not too thick, not too thin, and always carefully counted. 2 slices, any more, and you're spoiling the children. Any less, and you're inviting a mutiny. You slip in a sandwich, whole wheat, crusts removed, and hesitate at the cookie jar. A single cookie, hidden at the bottom of the bag, feels like contraband, but you want your daughter to feel just a little bit special. Besides, you know she'll trade it for something better. Lunchroom economics are brutal. At drop-off, the parking lot is a runway of station wagons and competitive smiling. You catch glimpses of other moms' lunch bags, some with thermoses, some with carrot sticks, and a few daring souls with plastic-wrapped brownies. Everyone pretends not to care, but the brown bag audit is real. There's a kind of silent scoring system. You can almost hear the mental check marks: fruit, protein, fiber, something with a mascot, and, God forbid, a Twinkie. Inside the cafeteria, the children unpack their lunches like contestants in a reality show. There's whispering and wide-eyed amazement when someone's mom packs an honest-to-goodness treat. The Twinkie is unwrapped, held aloft, and instantly becomes the subject of moral debate. You imagine the PTA convening an emergency meeting. Is snack cake a gateway to delinquency? Should fruit roll-ups be regulated? Will someone's reputation ever recover from a rogue bag of chips? You're not there, but your lunch packing choices echo through the grapevine. Did you see what Sarah brought? My mum says peanut butter is too fatty. I heard cookies slow you down in gym class. Even the children have absorbed the liturgy of diet culture, parroting magazine wisdom between bites of bologna and trade offers for Fritos. You wonder when eating became a competition, and who's actually keeping score. At home, you open the lunchbox in the evening, finding the apple slices browning, the sandwich crusts carefully discarded, and, sometimes, a cookie returned, uneaten, as if your child sensed it was a trap. You ask how lunch was, and your daughter shrugs. Amy had a fruit cup. Jessica had soup in a thermos. Can I have soup tomorrow? You nod, already planning tomorrow's offering. Something healthy but not too healthy. Fun but not scandalous. Nutritious but not weird. There's a fine line between thoughtful and embarrassing. Meanwhile, the other moms compare notes at the playground, the store, even in the aisles of the grocery store. Have you seen the new low-calorie bread? I read peanut butter's bad for kids. My sister switched to all-organic everything and says she's never felt better. The pressure is as invisible as it is relentless. You find yourself apologizing for the granola bar, defending the apple slices, rationalizing the cookie. It's all part of the modern parenting performance review. But some days, you rebel. You sneak in an extra cookie or a tiny candy bar. You watch your daughter's face light up when she discovers it, and you remind yourself that joy is as important as vitamins. You hope she remembers these moments, the treats, the small acts of kindness hidden between carrot sticks. At night, you line up tomorrow's brown bags and tell yourself you're doing your best. There's no grade for lunch, no gold star for restraint, just the quiet satisfaction of loving your child and, occasionally, letting her have the Twinkie. It's Thanksgiving. The house smells like cinnamon, turkey, and barely suppressed anxiety. Relatives arrive with casseroles and unsolicited opinions about your waistline. You strategize your meal like a general at Waterloo, calculating how to look festive while only eating 3 bites of stuffing and a polite cough. The kitchen is an oven of nerves and nostalgia. Every surface groans under the weight of tradition. Sweet potatoes with charred marshmallows, green bean casserole dusted with fried onions, pumpkin pies gleaming with a hopeful layer of whipped cream. You sample the mashed potatoes for seasoning, then immediately feel the eyes of 1,000 magazine covers watching you from the pantry. You tell yourself it's just a taste. The first lie of the day. As the doorbell rings, the family begins their migration. Uncles, aunts, cousins, and that one neighbor who never brings anything but takes home leftovers anyway. They arrive armed with Tupperware and thinly disguised commentary. You look great. Are you still doing that little diet? Have you tried not eating bread? I read somewhere that chewing each bite 30 times really works wonders. You smile and nod, wondering if it's too late to feign a cold and hide under the bed with a pie. The meal begins with a prayer and a clatter of forks. You fill your plate with the caution of a bomb disposal expert. Turkey, small slice. Cranberry sauce, just a dab. Stuffing, a molecule or two. Gravy, only if you can disguise it as an accident. Every decision is weighted. Will Aunt Linda notice if you skip her candied yams? Will Grandma be offended if you don't eat her secret recipe rolls? Every calorie comes with a side of family politics. You take your seat and the questions start, gently at first, then with increasing intensity. Is that all you're eating, dear? Are you on another one of your diets? I remember when you could eat 2 helpings. What happened to your appetite? You laugh it off, and claim you're saving room for dessert. The only thing you're really saving is your dignity. The children run wild, eating with the joyous abandon you secretly envy. Your cousin smuggles a second helping of potatoes, and no one bats an eye. You watch your husband eat 4 rolls, drenched in butter, and wish you lived in his parallel universe, a place where food is pleasure, not performance. As the meal winds down, dessert arrives, an army of pies and cakes arrayed in formation. You're allowed just a sliver, which in holiday math means 1/20th of a pie and an eternity of regret. Someone insists you try the pecan pie. Someone else says, "It's the holidays, treat yourself." You take a small forkful, savoring the sweetness, and immediately begin the mental calculations for tomorrow's penance. Extra laps at the park, salad for breakfast, a week of celery and contrition. After dinner, you help clear the table, stacking plates and scraping leftovers with a mix of longing and relief. In the kitchen, you exchange weary glances with the other women, all of you pretending to be satisfied, all of you vowing that next year you'll host something simpler, healthier, or at least less emotionally fraught. Maybe a raw carrot buffet. Maybe just coffee and judgment. Finally, the house quiets. Relatives leave, leftovers are packed, and you collapse into a chair, stomach half empty and spirit half full. The holiday meal is over, but the self-examination will echo for days. You survived, you performed, and, despite the guilt, you even tasted the pie. That in itself is a kind of victory. You tell yourself it's only once a year. But you know, as the leftovers cool in the fridge, that in Dietland, every meal is a high-stakes holiday, and you're always both the host and the judge. Your husband piles his plate high and encourages you to have just a little more. You smile, decline, and try not to roll your eyes when he claims women just naturally have smaller appetites. You're not sure if you're married or performing in a 1960s sitcom about domestic repression. It's dinner time and the table is set. A mountain of mashed potatoes, rivers of gravy, chicken fried to a golden crisp, and enough green beans swimming in butter to supply an Olympic team with energy for a week. Your husband sits at the head of the table, fork in hand, napkin at the ready, preparing to wage war on the buffet you've just orchestrated. He eats with gusto, each bite punctuated with a satisfied grunt and the occasional appreciative nod. You watch as he returns for seconds, then thirds, marveling at the way his waistband never seems to protest. "You really should have some more," he says, gesturing to the platter. "You barely touched your dinner." You wave him off politely, explaining that you're full. Again, it's your nightly performance, a mix of restraint and social theater. He raises his eyebrows, leaning in as if he's about to share a family secret. "You know, women just don't eat as much. It's nature." You resist the urge to offer a rebuttal on evolutionary biology. Instead, you smile and sip your water, performing the role of delicate wife as written by sitcom writers everywhere. In your head, though, you're rewriting the script. One where women eat what they want and men learn to microwave their own dinner. The kids, meanwhile, have no such qualms. They dig in with enthusiasm, licking plates and asking for seconds, their appetites both admired and encouraged. You watch them with a mix of envy and nostalgia, remembering a time before calories were counted and dinner was just, well, dinner. Your husband finishes his meal with a contented sigh and pats his stomach. "I don't know how you stay so slim," he says, with the confidence of a man who's never counted a calorie in his life. "It must be willpower." You nod, thinking it's more about self-denial and celery sticks, but let him have his small, well-fed victory. You clear the plates and scrub the pans. The unspoken pact between spouses playing out in the clatter of dishes and running water. He retires to the living room, feet up, newspaper open, blissfully ignorant of the complex calculus you've performed to make sure the family is fed, the house is clean, and you haven't exceeded your daily ration of invisible suffering. Later, as you wrap up the leftovers and prepare lunches for tomorrow, you consider the politics of the dinner plate. Every meal is a negotiation. Every portion a statement. You want to set an example for your children that food is joy, not punishment, but you're also trapped by decades of messaging that say women must be small, quiet, and eternally hungry. You vow, quietly, to be different, to take the extra spoonful, to eat the dessert, to say, "Yes, I'd like more, thank you," and mean it. Maybe not tonight, but someday. For now, you play your part. Because it's easier, because it's expected, and because changing the script takes more energy than you have left after dinner. As you turn out the kitchen light, you glance at the empty table and imagine a different world, a world where helpings aren't gendered, appetites aren't shamed, and no one ever feels guilty for wanting seconds. Until then, you'll keep smiling, keep declining, and keep rolling your eyes, quietly, just out of sight. There's a shelf in your living room devoted entirely to diet books, The Drinking Man's Diet, The Sleeping Beauty Diet, and something involving eating nothing but pineapple for a week. You've tried them all, failed them all, and keep them around just in case next time is different. The shelf isn't exactly hidden. It stands between the encyclopedias and the Better Homes and Gardens cookbooks, a monument to decades of hope, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of smaller thighs. The books are colorful, optimistic, and, if you're being honest, just a little accusatory. Their spines are creased from late-night consultations, margins filled with notes, check marks, and the occasional desperate plea, "Never again," or "Maybe try this in June." You run your finger along the lineup. The Drinking Man's Diet, with its promise of steak and martinis. You remember the week you gave that one a shot. Steak for breakfast, gin for lunch, and a persistent suspicion you'd stumbled onto a James Bond audition gone wrong. The Sleeping Beauty Diet. The ultimate in avoidance strategies. Why eat at all when you can nap through hunger? If only you had the time, or the nerve, to sleep for an entire weekend. The pineapple diet is still sticky with optimism and maybe a little actual pineapple juice, a reminder that too much fruit can be just as disappointing as too little. There's calories don't count, they do, the cabbage soup diet, your family still hasn't forgiven you, and eat like a French woman, you're still not entirely sure what that means, but you tried wearing a scarf for a week, just in case. Each book is a relic of a different self, hopeful, determined, and endlessly gullible. You keep them like talismans, evidence that you haven't given up. You're still searching, still ready to believe in the next big thing. Some are filled with glossy photos, before and afters that border on the miraculous, and recipes for meals that are meant to look delicious but taste like flavored air. You remember dutifully making weight loss soufflé, which involved a lot of whipped egg whites and even more self-delusion. The end result tasted like disappointment and stuck to the pan in ways that modern science can't explain. The truth is, every diet book offers the same fundamental promise: transformation. Not just a new body, but a new life, a new personality, maybe even a new wardrobe. Each one whispers, "This time, you'll stick with it. This time, you'll be the after photo." It's seductive, this optimism. The books pile up, each representing a fresh start, a clean slate, a possible you who never touches bread again. Your friends swap titles like secrets, trading tips about which ones are worth the price of admission and which are best left as doorstops. The latest bestsellers make the rounds at the beauty salon, discussed with the same reverence as the latest soap opera twist. I lost 8 pounds on the grapefruit cleanse. I gained 5 back when I stopped. But it was nice while it lasted. Sometimes you think about giving the whole collection away, but you can't quite let go. Each book is a story, a confession, a chapter in your personal history of trying and trying again. They are proof of your persistence, your hope, and your willingness to keep chasing the promise that happiness might be just one more recipe away. So the shelf remains, a quiet shrine to false hope, stacked with good intentions and a dash of absurdity. Every once in a while, you pull one down, just to see if maybe, just maybe, this time you'll find the secret. And if not, well, there's always another diet book waiting for you at the store, promising that everything will be different right after you finish the pineapple. You finally drift off, half listening to a late-night radio host selling a new exercise contraption. In your dreams, you're eating real cake and nobody cares. Tomorrow you'll wake up to scales, calorie charts, and the endless loop of trying to be less. But tonight, just for a little while, you get to be enough. You're stretched out in bed, covers tucked up to your chin, the world silent except for the distant drone of a radio ad. Lose 5 inches in your sleep. The vibricizer, just set it and forget it. You imagine a parade of restless housewives, all vibrating gently toward a thinner tomorrow. And you almost laugh. Almost. You turn over and let your mind wander. Far from the kitchen scale, the stack of dog-eared diet books, and the constant whir of anxiety about what you did or didn't eat. Here in the dark, there's no celery to crunch, no tab to sip, no Weight Watchers chart to update. There's just you. And, if you're lucky, a dream of cake with icing so thick it requires its own zip code. In this dream world, food isn't an enemy or a test. Meals are casual, spontaneous, a source of joy, and not judgment. You eat breakfast because you're hungry. Lunch isn't a punishment, and dinner is something you actually look forward to, not a math problem that requires advanced calculations and a support group. There are parties with buffet tables where you can eat the whole cracker, no sideways glances, no whispered calculations, no shame. You picture yourself at a holiday table, taking seconds of mashed potatoes, laughing when the gravy drips, knowing that no one's keeping score. The magazines are gone, the doctor's voice has faded, and the only gold dress you own is one that makes you feel good, no matter the size on the tag. Even the ghost of the bathroom scale has packed up and moved out, replaced by a quiet contentment that doesn't require measurement. In this sleepy fantasy, you catch glimpses of the other women in your life, friends, mothers, daughters, grandmothers, free from the burdens you all quietly carried. They're passing plates, eating cake, and never once apologizing for wanting more. You see your daughter licking frosting off her fingers, unafraid and unashamed, and you hope she never loses that sense of freedom. Outside the window, the night is soft and forgiving. You let go of the old worries, the comparisons, the endless hunger to be less. You tell yourself, gently, that for now, it's enough just to be. That even if the world wakes up tomorrow with another miracle diet, another impossible standard, another quiz about whether you're thin enough to be lovable, you can roll over, pull the covers tight, and choose rest over remorse. Sleep wraps around you like a second blanket, heavy and warm, shielding you from the tick of the clock and the whisper of the scale. In these final moments before dreams, you remember. Your worth isn't measured in ounces, or points, or even good intentions. It's measured in kindness, laughter, and the stubborn hope that tomorrow things might just be different. So, as the radio fades, as your thoughts drift and settle, you let yourself imagine a world without diets. You promise, just for tonight, to believe in it. And in the morning, when the sun creeps back and the world demands discipline, you'll remember this. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply allow yourself to rest, just as you are. Good night. So tonight, as you nestle into your soft, forgiving mattress, one that's never required you to do jazzercise before lying down, take a long, easy breath. Think back on the 1960s, when diet culture crept quietly through every pastel kitchen and magazine rack, quietly convincing millions of women that self-worth came in one size, and flavorless food was the ticket to happiness. You survived a day of grapefruit breakfasts, suspiciously optimistic diet pills, and the unique psychological torment of public weigh-ins. You dodged casseroles, counted calories instead of sheep, and still managed to hold your head high in a world that measured value by inches and ounces. You juggled casseroles, craved cookies in secret, and navigated the buffet of social judgment, armed with nothing but dry wit and even drier Melba toast. But here's the thing. The women of the 1960s didn't just endure, they persisted, laughed, and sometimes even ate the dessert anyway. Their struggle was real, and so was their resilience. They built families, friendships, and secret stashes of chocolate chips in the back of every pantry. They quietly rebelled in small, stubborn ways, passing down stories and maybe a few cookie recipes that taste a lot better than celery. Tonight, be grateful for the freedom to eat what you want, to wear what fits, and to know that happiness is not measured in calories. Maybe whisper a silent thank you to every woman who faced the scale and chose to live another day in her own complicated body. Because history is proof that people are stubborn, hopeful, and yes, sometimes a little ridiculous. So let your mind drift, let your body relax, and remember, you are enough, exactly as you are. Sleep well, dream of a world with no more diets, and wake up tomorrow with all the joy that comes from being deliciously, unapologetically human. Good night.